Hey, it's the Gundam Boy, and are you ever struggling to figure out what armor you want to wear? I never really struggle with this because I always wear Golden Eagle. Armor and their passives can actually change a good amount of your gameplay. Most of them usually fall into either utility or defense. It's not like a solid term because if not bursting into flames is utility to you, then it is. While not as important as picking your weapon, armor passives can often provide extra abilities to help your diver in the field. But that's right, we're gonna take a look at all the armor passives. But no better place to start than extra padding, which adds 50 to your armor rating. Mind you, this sets you at 150 armor, making you basically heavy armor if you're wearing the medium armor set. Well, this passive comes in a variety of medium armors, like, man, I wish I pre-ordered. Hey, how's it going? It's the Gundam Boy. The ambassador of the brand was a pre-order armor, and the Golden Eagle came from an event that I don't remember, but we'll have to wait and see what Arrowhead does. In the Superstore, we have a light armor variant, we also have a medium armor variant for snow, and we have the absolute chunker himself, Fortified Commando. The main use of this armor passive is to help your diver with resisting damage, and not just for one part of your body, as the 150 armor rating goes across the board. This even includes your head, as it reduces the damage you take everywhere. D2 is wearing the light armor, T4 is wearing the medium, and T3 is wearing the heavy. The medium armor and the heavy armor actually perform very similar to each other, because whether it be shooting them in the chest or shooting them in the foot, they still came out with very similar damage numbers. We did this test with different armor passives comparing it to the extra padding, and it still had more health at the end. I would also like to note that I did this test with the pacifier, because it does the same amount of damage that warriors do and Hive Guard. I like this armor passive because on medium armor sets, it makes me heavy while still being mobile, allowing me to play a bit more aggressive while still having good defenses. Then we have Engineering Kit, which reduces recoil when crouching or prone by 30%, while also increasing your inventory and holding capacity of throwables by 2. For example, the frag grenade only gives you 6, but if you're using it with Engineering Kit, it will give you 8. So whether you be using it for demolition or just killing chaff, you'll always have grenades on hand. And with this weapon's better recoil control when you're crouched or prone, it can make even the heaviest guns even more stable, allowing for more consistent and fluid shots when you're following up. We have 3 armor sets that you can get from Warbonds, while all 7 of the others in their variants you can find in the Superstore. I gotta say, Groundbreaker is the best looking of them all. Then we have Fortified, which reduces your recoil when you're going crouch or prone by 30%, while also giving you more explosive resistance by 50. Which is a really strong armor passive, because medium armor can survive one shot from a grenade launcher, which isn't anything to scoff at when you consider that this is 400 damage, like a Scout Strider's rocket, in comparison to someone without it, which is just instant death. Which, the heavy Fortified of course providing the best defense, the medium providing pretty good defense, and the light armor dies. Unfortunate. There is a variety of heavy armor variants that you will get access through Warbonds, while there's 4 armor sets you can specifically get from the Superstore. But let's draw some attention to the B-24 Enforcer, as it does have a slightly higher armor rating at 129, and while it looks absolutely great, all it takes is one step into the water and you're now black. I don't know how the mud skipped the chest plate and you're just completely painted at the head and legs. Then let's talk about Servo Assisted, increasing your throw range by 30% while also providing 50% limb health. It's a pretty straightforward armor passive, allowing the Helldivers to throw a little bit further than if they didn't have the armor passive, giving Servo Assisted a bit more range for its throw. And if you include the fact that you can dive and throw to increase that range even further, you can get some pretty serious range, allowing you to throw your red stratagems at the enemy base from a safe distance. Or if you're really bad at gauging your 500 kilogram bomb, you could be way further away from it. And it can also be a great option for grenades that have long fuse times, or in this case, an impact grenade, giving it way further range than any other grenade, which also includes the butter knife. But this armor passive is included in the Steel Veterans Warbond, and there is one in Polar Patriots, while the other 2 can be found in the Superstore. Then we have the Med Kit passive, increasing initial inventory and holding capacity of stims by 2 while increasing the stim effect by 2.0 seconds. And even though it takes only 1 stim to get your health back, the prolonged effect means you can still have your crack booster going in the background. And those extra stims can either be used on yourself or for teammates, which actually pairs really well with the stim pistol, as it will increase the healing rate that the handgun will give, making it a lot easier to heal teammates without having to stim them too many times. There's 2 versions of this that you'll get in the Helldivers Mobilize Warbond, while you can find a light, a medium, and a heavy version in the Superstore. And the Alpha Commander. I remember when this armor was only accessible through Twitch, and all the goddamn booby streamers were lying, had me going Then we have Peak Physique, where melee damage is increased by 100, but it improves the weapon's handling by increasing its ergonomics by 30, making the heaviest of weapons handle like butter. Great for those weapons with those really low ergonomics like HMG, or while gripping the maxi gun at full speed. And of course, the increased melee damage is increasing it by 100%, boosting the melee weapon. Just be sure you're not in the range of a melee diver. They paid for that passive at God Hardy, they will use it. There's only 3 variants of Peak Physique: the light armor and the heavy armor that you can get in the Warbond, and 1 in the Superstore for medium armor. Then we have Democracy protects, 50% chance to not die when taking lethal amounts of damage, while also preventing all damage from bleeding if the chest hemorrhages. This is a perfect armor set if you like to go gambling, which isn't always guaranteed to work. But there is some times where it will work, and you will survive. Even if your Helldiver standing there with no health, if he gets hit by a lethal amount of damage, there's a chance you will still survive it. Don't quote me on this unless I'm right, but I wonder if headshot damage is usually more lethal.
Yes, I think it's just headshot.
So it's more of a fun armor passive that lets you kind of screw. But if you like gambling, it's the perfect armor for you. Oh! You survived the initial explosion, but not the hit. It really is up to democracy whether you live or die. There's not that many variants of this armor passive, with 2 of them being accessible from Helldivers Mobilize, while the B-22 model Citizen is a gift for the 1-year war that we've been a part of. And of course we have the TR-9 Cavalier of Democracy, which was a pre-order armor. And you can't forget the DP-00 Tactical, which is an armor set that all new Helldivers should still get access to. Then we have Inflammable, which provides 75% damage resistance to fire, which is pretty straightforward. It just lets you walk in fire a little bit longer before you die. Especially great for divers who are accident prone to lighting themselves ablaze. And with the right loadout, you can turn yourself into a blazing turret with the DE sickle, or give you some extra defense against enemies like the Incineration Core or Dragon Roaches. There's a light and a medium version of this armor that comes with the Freedom Flames Warbond. In the Superstore, there is a medium variant and a heavy variant of this armor set. Then we have Advanced Filtration, which provides 80% resistance to gas damage. And since there's no enemies in the game that actually deals damage with gas, we only really have it to defend ourselves from our own gas. And with its high resistance and the fact that gas does pretty low damage anyways, it means Helldivers can really stand in this for a while before it becomes a problem. And between the 3 classes of armor, of course the heavy armor takes the least, while the light armor takes the most, and the medium armor takes a fair amount. But this is without Vitality Enhancement, because with Vitality Enhancement, you are completely immune to the gas if you're using the heavy variant of the armor. 100% immunity if you're using this heavy armor set.
Why won't you die?
Why won't you die?
Joke's on you, I'm wearing Degree deodorant. The Chemical Agents Warbond gives you 1 light armor and a medium armor set, with 2 other armor sets that you can find in the Superstore, 1 being medium and 1 being heavy. It has nipples and it's staring at me. Then we have a really niche one. Electrical Conduit, 95% resistance to arc, allowing you guys to zap each other with no problem.
Ow, my arm!
Ah, my arm! There is a very small amount of enemies that can actually attack you with arc in this game, all being on the Illuminate front, being the Lightning Spire, the Watcher, and the Harvester, making this mainly good for defending yourself from your teammates.
Let me get mine down quickly!
Be tased! And because of how niche this armor passive is, you can only find it in the Cutting Edge Warbond, with only 3 variants, 1 light and 2 medium. Then we have Acclimated, which provides a wider range of elemental resistance, while also adding the unique resistance to acid. You got a light and you got a medium variant of this armor. And since it has a wider range of defenses but lower percentage overall, you're not gonna outlast certain Helldivers in their raw element. And then we have the Desert Stormer passive, which does the same thing but even weaker elemental resist, while also increasing your throw range by 20%, which isn't as much as Servo assisted 30. I actually don't like this armor passive, unfortunately. But you can get a medium variant and a heavy variant, and if you want to get the light armor variant, it's in the Superstore. Then we have the Scout armor passive. Markers placed on the map will generate a radar scan, while reducing the range at which enemies can detect the wearer by 30%. This armor set lets you run around and sneak up on enemies, especially from the front, as their visual detection range gets chopped. But at night, the armor passive actually improves, allowing you to get even closer to the enemies at the front side. The pinging ability allows you to see inside enemy bases, giving you a good idea of what kind of enemies might be at that location, or how many buildings are left to be destroyed. All 3 variants of the Scout armor passive is accessible in the Helldivers Mobilize Warbond, with the Arctic Ranger only being in Polar Patriots. Then we have Feet First, which makes the wearer 50% less noise while moving around, increasing point of interest identification range by 30%, and immunity to leg injuries, protecting your feet from those fucking ankle biters. And the ability to find a point of interest sounds nice, but I feel like I don't need help with this one. The real charm of this armor passive is the ability to sprint as fast as you can towards an enemy location without them noticing you. Hell, it can even make things like the jump pack completely quiet when you're next to the enemies. The automatons didn't even flinch, which led to me finding out you could sneak up to them using the hover pack. Like, does it not just sound like... Don't try it with a warp pack though, they will hear you. But if you're sneaking up from behind, you can get really close to the enemy. Hi. There are only 2 variants of this armor that you can get in the official War Bond for the legendary Halo crossover. God damn, I love that helmet. Then we have Rock Solid, increased melee damage by 100, and the bearer is more resistant to being knocked prone, allowing Helldivers to resist certain types of explosions, avoiding knocking them on their ass. Alright, now give me a shot. However, heavier weapons can still ragdoll you. You are not Captain America. And there's quite a bit of enemies on the bot front that can still ragdoll you when you're wearing Rocksteady. Mind you, you're more resistant to being knocked prone, not immune to it. But depending on the projectile that's being thrown at you, if it hits next to you, you're less likely to go flying. If you're using it on the bot front, I'm just saying, don't be surprised if you get knocked over. But with something like Directional Shield, you can actually tank the shots of the rockets from both Hulks, Rocket Devs, and the Troopers. But not the Scout Striders. And even though the shield is absorbing most of the ballistic damage that the rocket would do, the explosion damage still bypasses the shield and hurts the diver. But if you're going up against the Overseer, they can't melee you over. I just would kill them before they get the second swing in because they do a lot of damage. The melee damage is pretty straightforward, it's just 100% more melee. Oh, you never mind. And you can get a light and a heavy version of it in the Warbond for Python Commandos, and in the Superstore you can get the legally distinct Doom Guy. Then we have Gunslinger, which increases the sidearm reload speed by 40%, draw and holster speed by 50, and your sidearm recoil reduced by 70%. Not much to say here other than the fact that it makes your handguns handle pretty well. Only if they could take away that goddamn sway they added to handguns, and this would be awesome. Even a handgun like the Verdict kicks like nothing when you have this armor passive on. So even though it bounces like hell on the B10 Tactical, using it with a Gunslinger passive can make it almost non-existent. In the Borderline Justice War Bond, there are 2 armor sets, one medium and one heavy, with another one in the light armor category that you can get in the Superstore. Should have had a cowboy hat. We also have integrated explosives. The armor explodes after 1.5 seconds after the wearer dies, and we're gonna ignore the grenade part because we already know what increased grenades are. Rather, we're gonna focus on the fact that when you die with this armor set, it has an armor penetration of 5 and 2000 damage, taking 2 Helldivers to destroy a bot fabricator from the outside. But the blast radius isn't too big, so if you die too far away, it won't damage anything. And you can sacrifice yourself if you're out of options into a bug hole. You can get 2 medium armor variants of this in the War Bond, and you can get a light armor variant in the Superstore. Then we have Reinforced Epilepsy, where you can increase your reload of the primary by 30%, gives the wearer 50% chance to avoid grievous limb injury, and increase the melee damage by 50%. I'm pretty neutral about this armor passive because it's all stuff we've seen before. Yes, faster reloading, yes, more melee damage against bugs, but not as much as peak physique, and the equivalent of Democracy Protects, but for your limb damage only. At least the armor looks great with the Parade Commander and the Honorary Guard both being accessible in the War Bond, while the heavy armor set can be found in the Superstore. Then we have the Adreno defibrillator, which resurrects your Helldiver for a short amount of time before they die again, assuming that your limbs are all still attached together, while increasing stim effect duration by 2.0 seconds, and a 50% resistance to arc damage. You won't survive your own Tesla tower, but you can definitely tank at least 1 hit from something like the arc spires. The unique thing about this armor passive though is coming back to life. You are still dying, and you will actively lose health until you just die, but this armor passive lets you get that last hell bomb or stratagem off so you can take down your enemies with you. In the Control Group Warbond, you can get a medium and a heavy armor, and you can buy the light armor version in the Superstore. It looks like it wants to steal my children, or my burger patty. Then we have Unflinching, which prevents Helldivers from flinching when hit, has a higher armor rating, and the marker placed on the map will ping out enemies. However, I have to say, this armor passive sounds great for the automaton front until you realize that you still sorta flinch. When I first talked about the Unflinching passive being kinda funky, someone said that I was wrong and that it still works, but it still is actively flinching you. This is like an exact definition of what flinching is. If I'm about to punch you in the face and you put your hands up, that's flinching. Which makes this armor passive feel like it's not completely finished. Every time you take damage, it pushes you in a direction, which would still fall under flinching. So you have a light armor variant and a medium armor variant that you can get from the Truth Enforcers Warbond, with another medium variant that you can get in the Superstore. Then we have Ballistic Padding, which provides 25 defense to the chest, 25 resistance to explosive damage, and prevents all bleeding from chest if you get hemorrhages, which it does receive less damage if you get shot in the chest by the pacifier, which is similar to the Golden Eagle. Unlike Ballistic Padding, extra padding doesn't protect you against bleeding out.
I'm bleeding out!
We even tested Ballistic Padding versus the Extra Padding and Fortified against the Commando to see how much health they would have after an explosion. But I gotta say, it's pretty close. We have a medium and a light version, and you can get the heavy version of this armor set in the Superstore, which I gotta run some tests on, because I'm curious on how tanky you are with this armor set. Then we have Siege Ready. Increase reload of primaries by 30%, and increase ammo capacity for all weapons by 20%, not including backpack-fed weapons. The combination of having a fast reload and extra ammo to fire makes this armor passive a very beloved one by a lot of Helldivers, because the faster you get the reloading, the more shooting you get to do, and who wouldn't want an extra magazine for your machine gun? In the Urban Legends War Bond, you have a light and a heavy armor, and another heavy armor variant in the Superstore one. So, what do you guys think about the armors in this game? Do you like certain passives? Do you have a favorite armor? And what would you guys like to see in the future? So, be sure to leave a like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you guys later.